Hello you majestic Magnemites, welcome to the top 10 decks in February, ready for EUIC in a few weeks. I hope you enjoyed the video and a like and sub would be greatly appreciated. Now let's jump right into that top 10 spot. In at number 10 I have Block Lax, and it only just creeps into that number 10 spot because of Badoo. It really does hurt the deck, not being able to get things out of the discard pile, not using your counter catchers, and also not using the accompanying flutes. Just really hinders the deck in becoming much better. It was the perfect pick if you love watching paint dry to go to a regional, because it wasn't as expected in the format. Everyone was playing Drago, everyone was playing Charizard, everyone was playing all of these other decks that just kind of flew under the radar. In my opinion, it's just a shame that it loses itself to rotation. The deck's not a thing in March, and it really is a shame because of how much I like the deck. Overall, in my opinion, it's just such an underrated pick for EUIC. It's just right in the right position, with everything running around with all of these little squishy fezzes and all of that stuff. It can just fly, and it might even win. It'll definitely get top 8 in my opinion. Now let's head on to number 9 spot. In the number 9 spot, we have Charizard EX. Now, it really falls short in this format due to Badoo. Not using the rare candies and having 3 lines of a stage 2 evolution just really hurts the deck, and it just can't function when they start Badoo and just keep using the 10 damage, 10 damage, 10 damage without you being able to evolve. It really does suck for the deck, and it's such a shame, but that's just how the cookie crumbled for it. Personally, I wouldn't take this deck to EUIC. It just has too many flaws in the format, and since Badoo's new, everyone's going to be playing it. It's just not the pick, and that's why it's number 9. I really wish I could put it higher, but it's just not the right format for Charizard to shine. Now let's move on to that number 8 spot. Coming in at number 8, we have Dragapult Charizard. It is the lower Dragapult list on my top 10, but it is still better than Charizard and Block Lax in my opinion. Coming into EUIC, it does okay. I wouldn't play it over my other Dragapult list, but it is still viable, and if you're comfortable playing this deck, then go for it. It does really well going into Badoo because you play Forger Cloak, so you're quite consistent and you don't always rely on the rare candies. The deck also has some great matchups in the best decks in the format. It does really well into Gardevoir because of the 6 damage counters. You could just put them all over the board and destroy all of their attackers. And it's also great into the Badoos because if you have a Badoo on the bench, you can just put 3 of the damage counters on it and it's knocked out in a free prize. So it is quite well positioned in the format. Though overall, if you were thinking of playing Dragapult, I would play the list that's higher up on my top 10. Now let's see what's in that number 7 spot. For my number 7, I've gone with Archaludon EX. Now it is still brilliant in the format in my opinion. I played it at Birmingham and it played excellently. However, with Regidrago being so bad now, it loses one of its best matchups. With it being best deck in format at one point, before Badoo, it was everywhere and that was a really good matchup for the deck, but now without it being there, it kind of falls short on its matchup spreads. It's okay into Raging Bolt and things like that and the big basic decks, but when it's going against Gardevoir, it just struggles, with it being the same story with Lugia. Now that's just what really lets the deck down, but otherwise I think it's amazing. I would love to play it at EUIC, and I really wish I did get the chance to. The deck also wins a lot of online tournaments. In the Pumpga weeklies and all of these other 200 plus player tournaments, it always comes out on top. There's usually one in top 8, if not top 16, and it's just a really solid, consistent deck, which is why it is one of my personal favourite decks of all time. Now let's see what's at number 6. My number 6 deck for EUIC is Miraidon. Now I just think it is really well placed in the format now that Badoo's came in, and it just auto wins against Lugia V-Star. You get the weakness with the Miraidons and it's really turbo, so you can usually just set up before Lugia. Now this is really important since it's the best deck in format, and to have something that counters that, it's going to be high up on my list. Before this shift in the meta, it wasn't really in the question for being on my top 10, but since it does so well into Lugia, and it also has an okay time into most of the other decks on the list, it's pretty good. I would consider playing it at EUIC. I just want to see how San Antonio comes out and all these other online tournaments, and whether it is really worth playing something anti-meta. The deck also survives rotation pretty well. It gets rid of the Raikou, but that's not too bad for the deck because it can just use other attackers. And I really hope when other sets come out that it gets some good lightning type attackers. So that's my number 6 pick. I'm not sure if it will stay here. It really depends how Lugia goes into EUIC. But yeah, let's move on to the number 5 spot. In at number 5 I have Goldengo, and it is really quite underrated in my opinion because of how consistent it is, and with Energy Search Pro you can usually get one knockout very easily based off one item card. It is really nice deck, but the only unfortunate thing is it relies on like Radiant Greninja, Manaphy and Fez to just keep going over the game. The deck is also doing very well in online tournaments. It keeps consistently placing high throughout all of the online tournaments on Limitless, and it really does show. It's a really nice deck and consistent, and as soon as it gets set up, there's not much stopping it. It's just a shame that it has a bad matchup into Gardevoir and some other decks, such as Lugia, and this really is very good for the deck. I'm not surprised it's doing well based on the current format, and it doesn't rely on item cards that much. Of course you need it for the superior energy retrieval to get those energies back, and the Energy Search Pro, but as soon as you've used them, there's not really anything else that you need. So overall, Goldengo is a really nice deck. It's consistent and pairs well into most of the decks in format. If I'd have played it before EUIC, I would definitely consider bringing it to the event. Now let's see what's at number 4. Now for me, the 4th best deck in format is Raging Bolt. I just find it really easy to KO those Lugias and all of those large EX Pokemon running around due to Raging Bolt's attack. 70, 140, 210, 280, hits all the right numbers, especially into Lugia, and that's just all the deck does. It's just really good at a certain thing, it has the tournaments to show it, and it just places really well. There's not much wrong with the deck, and it doesn't really lose much to rotation either. It's got the Sardas, it's got the Ogerpon, it even has the Bolt. There's nothing the deck can't do in my opinion. Another solid pick for EUIC. I don't know why many people don't use it, as the ability to knock out everything in format really is a good thing that the deck has got going for it. Now let's move on to the number 3 spot. Just squeezing its way into the top 3 is Gardevoir EX. It's really good in this format. The single prize attackers doing over 300 damage, such as Drifloon, is really powerful. It is a shame that it just falls short of Dragapult, and there's not much they can do about that, with them having so many 1 prizes on the board that are quite squishy. 1 to 2 attacks of Dragapult will get them an extra prize, and that's what really harms the deck. It also really struggles to Jamming Tower, and there's so many things that you tech against Gardevoir. But other than that, I hope it does really well at EUIC. It did struggle at Birmingham and Rio de Janeiro because people were teching for it. You know, in my Arcaladon deck I added Jamming Towers. Most decks were playing Jamming Towers if they didn't know what to play as the stadium. And they also were running Lost Vacuum, like Raging Bolt was running Lost Vacuum. And that just really stopped the deck, because you can just play those cards, take an extra prize and have a 2 prize turn. So that's the only thing that bothers the deck, and that is why it's at the number 3 spot. Now let's see what's second in my rankings. Just missing out on that top spot is Dragapult EX. Now it gained Purdue. I know this list isn't playing it, but it is really nice to add in the deck. Since it doesn't succumb to Purdue on its own, as we're running the 4-3-3 line of the Dragapult, there's really nothing that stops the deck from Prismatic Evolutions. And I think that is why everyone is playing it and everyone's been hyping it up the past few weeks. And I feel like that's because its bad matchup, Regidrago, has just been wiped out of the format. The other great thing about Dragapult is its spread potential. With the Dusknoir, you can put 130 or 50 on one of the Pokemon, then just keep chipping away at it with the Dragapult's attack. That really helps the deck and improves its matchups tremendously. Now let's check out the number 1 deck for EUIC in 2025. Now for me, the best deck for EUIC in 2025 is Lugia V-Star. It's positioned so well in the format. Its ability to work in every single matchup and the adding of Regigigas just makes this deck 100 times better from the release of Prismatic Evolutions. If I was going to EUIC, I would be playing Lugia. It's just that good in the format. It keeps winning the tournaments since it's been allowed in play, and there's not much wrong with it in my opinion. Its range of energy types, range of attackers, you can use one different attacker for each matchup, Cinccino only being one prize, the deck just works. And even with matchups, it goes great into most decks, and there's not much you can stop it anymore. It's a little bit like the Silver Tempest format. I don't like it, but that's just where it's headed with the item lock. However, that doesn't even hit it hard either, as it doesn't stop the Lugia V-Star getting Archeops out, it doesn't stop the energy acceleration, it has enough energy to attack with everything. There's nothing you can really do, and that's why Lugia is my number one deck. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave a like and a sub if you want more from me. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.